Hi, it's Dwyer. It is Sunday, November 15th, 2020. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Let's talk boxing. Post-fight, Terence Crawford's KO victory over Brook. But first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me just say, in all of boxing, nobody has the resume right now that Terence Crawford has. Understand the case for Crawford being the best in the sport pound for pound. Welterweight is his third weight class, at which he's been a champion. He's now defended that belt 4 times. But understand, Crawford was the champ at lightweight, 135. Crawford was undisputed at 140, right? So this is a guy who's further along than Alexander Usyk, who, like him, is also unbeaten, right? Usyk, the undisputed cruiserweight champion, and to be in this conversation, you have to have been undisputed. Usyk, the undisputed cruiserweight champion, is now trying to win the belt at heavyweight. Understand, Crawford has already been undisputed at 140, has already won the belt at 135, has won the belt at 147, and has now successfully defended that belt 4 times, including KO wins, stoppages of Amir Khan, former champion, and Brook, former champion. We don't consider Crawford, who's a master technician, to be a KO puncher. But understand, folks, it's now been 4.5 years. 4.5 years since anyone has gone the distance with Terence Crawford. Right? The knockouts come in the flow of the action. You don't even get the feeling that Crawford is trying for a knockout. His opponents are simply outclassed. Now, this fight is particularly frustrating. Particularly frustrating. In the pre-fight videos, I made the argument that Brook was the better athlete. He was bigger. He was faster. He has a hand speed advantage. I believe he had a foot speed advantage. Right? So the argument I made was simply that in the first 3 rounds, against a slow starting Terence Crawford, and he's slow starting because, like Juan Manuel Marquez, he spends the early rounds trying to read you. Bernard Hopkins, another slow starter. Right? These guys don't want to open up their own book until they've read yours. Right? So I made the case that Brook would have a physical advantage very early in this fight. And that what he had to do was to impose himself. Right? One of the fights I used as an analogy was the first fight between Manny Pacquiao and Marquez. Right? Marquez might be a master boxer, but Pacquiao was faster. Pacquiao hit harder. Pacquiao was the better athlete. So, while a fighter like Marquez or a Crawford is trying to read you, is trying to figure out your speed, how they can counter you, the right strategy to use, well, that's your window of opportunity. Do you want the belt or not? Now, going into this fight, Brook had to realize he's having the fight in the United States. I don't care if it's in a bubble or not, right? Let's deal with the politics of boxing. He's fighting Terence Crawford unbeaten in Crawford's backyard. The fact that Crawford is unbeaten is going to make a lot of judges, whether they say so or not. And I know in theory the fighters are supposed to enter the ring with equal weight. That's not the way it goes. The fact that Crawford is unbeaten, the fact that Crawford's the belt holder, means that judges will have to see a special, let's use Kell Brook's nickname, a special performance to end Crawford's reign and his unbeaten streak. You understand that? You're going to have to win the fight by stoppage to win the fight. If it's a beauty contest, if it goes the distance, if you don't have dramatic moments where it's clear that you have hurt Crawford, that Crawford is reeling, if you don't have those, if not knockdowns in the fight, you're going to lose. So Kell Brook, being bigger, being faster, more athletic, should have realized he needs a stoppage in the fight. He needs to go for a stoppage in the fight. Right? Let's be real too. Brook has to realize he's fighting a technician, just like you wouldn't hop in the ring with Floyd Mayweather and decide, you know what, I'm going to win a decision on Floyd. Right? Watching film after film of Mayweather making adjustments so that he's dominating in the latter part of the fight. Right? No, if you're fighting a Mayweather, you come in and the idea has to be, hey, I'm going to rough this guy up. This isn't going to be a boxing match. I don't want a boxing match against a Mayweather, against an Ali. I don't want that against an Usyk, against a Crawford. You don't want a boxing match. If you're the bigger man, if you're the faster man, if you're the better athlete, you need to come in like Thomas the Hitman Hearns did. He wasn't even the bigger man in that fight. You need to come in like Hearns did against Marvin Hagler. If you think you're faster than the other guy, if you question whether the other guy can take your punch, then in that early part of the fight, the very early part of the fight, in the Hearns-Hagler case, folks, it's the first round. You got to flash hand speed and power. By the way, Hearns was right. He was able to land that right hand on Marvin Hagler. He was right about that. What he didn't expect was Hagler to be able to take his punch. What he didn't expect was Hagler to then say, okay, you want to fight? Player, this is my weight class, here it is. Right? Well, let's talk about this fight. So Kell Brook comes out. Folks, when the fight starts, it's clear Kell Brook's the better athlete. It's clear. On my scorecard, one man's opinion here. Kell Brook wins the first 2 rounds. But as you're watching Kell Brook win the first 2 rounds, and some of Brook's jabs are crisp, you see Terence Crawford's head snap back. Crawford, who comes out in an orthodox stance, and I believe Crawford's really a southpaw, but he comes out in an orthodox stance. Crawford comes out on Kell Brook's terms and is overwhelmed. Right? Crawford has, put it this way, Kell Brook has the heavier jab when Crawford is orthodox. Right? Excuse me. Crawford comes out in an orthodox stance. He comes out as a righty. Kell Brook has the decided advantage. Right? Kell Brook looks fresher. Kell Brook looks ready. Kell Brook looks strong. Kell Brook snaps Crawford's head back. You get the feeling Crawford could not stay in the pocket. You got the feeling that a right-handed Kell Brook had a decided advantage on a right-handed Terence Crawford. But those 2 rounds have a mystery. Right? Kell Brook, for some reason, doesn't take the extra step doesn't turn the boxing match into a fight. He has Crawford at a disadvantage. This is his opportunity to hurt Crawford. Understand, that's what the goal should have been. It shouldn't have been to outpoint Crawford. Right? He's winning the rounds. Hey, that's good. Winning the rounds is only good insofar as it enables me to hurt Crawford. It enables me to show the judges tonight is the night Crawford loses his title. Tonight is the night Crawford loses his unbeaten streak. If you need for me to beat this man by half a second in the 100 meters, this is the night I'm going to do so. That's not Kell Brook. He's winning the first 2 rounds, but he's tentative. He's not opening up the cabinet. He's tentative. He's content edging Crawford, even though he has the hand speed and size advantage. So then we get to the 3rd round, and it's baffling, right? It's baffling. Crawford then comes out southpaw in the 3rd round. He's going to have to change the angles. Now, I've looked at the film. What I want you, the public, to do in the comment section of this video is to tell us what adjustments Kell Brook makes in that 3rd round, given that Crawford is now fighting southpaw. In other words, Crawford's jab now is his right hand. Crawford, by switching from orthodox to southpaw, has neutralized Kell Brook's jab. Right? Kell Brook's having a hard time landing his left hand. Right? You understand, the best punch in this fight, the first 2 rounds, Crawford neutralizes in round 3 by going southpaw. Right? Now, I believe Crawford in real life is a southpaw. As they tell you on the telecast, Crawford usually comes out as a southpaw. This fight, he comes out orthodox. So Kell Brook should have been prepared for Crawford to switch to southpaw. This is what ambidextrous fighters do. Now let me just say this, and they pointed out Timothy Bradley on the telecast is excellent. He's pointing out that when Crawford is in a southpaw stance, that opens the door for Kell Brook to throw straight right hands. Right? Straight right hands. Now let me say this. Since Kell Brook has had eye problems in 2 fights, the Golovkin fight and the Errol Spence fight, right? They mention work done on Kell Brook's eye sockets. Since Crawford himself, in the pre-fight lead-up, in talking directly to Kell Brook, tells Kell Brook that his eyes are messed up. You know, there's a possibility that Crawford is going to be targeting Kell Brook's eyes, right? You go after the man's Achilles heel, so to speak. So what I want in the comment section here, this is a community, again, is to tell us when the 3rd round starts and Crawford comes out and he's southpaw. What does Kell Brook do by way of an adjustment to deal with the adjustment that Crawford has made? Right? When you're fighting Terrence Crawford, of all people, you can't be surprised by his adjustments. This is what he does. This is why he's a technician. Well, let me tell you, the 3rd round's fascinating because Kell Brook lands a straight right hand. He does. If Kell Brook thought like Manny Pacquiao, Kell Brook would have been living on that straight right hand. Kell Brook, who's a great athlete, didn't even bounce like Kell Brook bounces in fights. He bounces more against Golovkin than he does against Terence Crawford. Right? Manny Pacquiao would have been bouncing, would have guarded against Terence Crawford's right jab. This is Crawford out of a southpaw stance. Right? You understand. Crawford's going to come in and try to jab you. Manny Pacquiao would have been moving his head. And Manny Pacquiao would have been throwing well, for him, he's a southpaw, would have been throwing straight left hands. Would have been throwing his best punch. Kell Brook, in the third round, could not decide. And it's a shocker. Could not decide. In a fight in the United States against a champion who's unbeaten, whether he wanted to fight Terence Crawford or box Terence Crawford. Right, folks? That's just mind-blowing. The fight was there on the table. Kell Brook, for whatever reason, didn't let his hands go. Didn't assert, in my opinion, the superior hand speed and athleticism that he had. Right? He's up 2 rounds to none going into the third round. He has forced Terence Crawford to change from orthodox to southpaw. At that moment, he should have realized, okay, I'm doing something right, because Terence Crawford has had to change his strategy. So he should have realized, okay, well, Crawford now has made the switch to neutralize my jab. He's going to try to come in with his right hand. I had to have expected this, because this is not the first fight in which Terence Crawford has changed his stance. Right? Crawford knows that I've had eye injuries. I should know I have eye injuries. That's what stops the Errol Spence fight, for example. Right? You would have thought that Kell Brook would have had a hand up to block Crawford's jab. Right? Crawford, by the way, is obvious here. He starts to come up. Look at the film. He starts to come up on Kell Brook's left shoulder. Right? Crawford's trying to close the distance coming in at about 10:30, 11 o'clock. So you would have thought Kell Brook might have even flashed some left hooks just to let the guy know, player, this angle's a dead end for you. You're not going to come up on me over here. This angle's a dead end for you. And he should have let Crawford know, I'm throwing big shots. Right? Big shots. You're going to have to think about my power every second of this fight. As Teddy Atlas likes to say, you're going to pay for the real estate if you're going to try to get close to me. Right? I know I have the hand speed advantage. I'm going to flash hand speed. Right? You would have thought there would have been a 3-dimensional game too. To Kell Brook. In other words, put your hand up. He's a better athlete. Start bouncing. Bend a little bit. I want people again to revisit, and it's in my favorites folder. The first round. It's breathtaking, folks. Of Joe Frazier against Ali. Folks, Frazier's outright aggressive. This is prime Frazier. Frazier on his front foot when he's bobbing and weaving is one of the best in heavyweight history. As that first round goes along, Ali had to know he's getting hunted. Right? You don't let the technical guy determine the terms. You have to force him out of his game. Well, in the third round, you notice Terence Crawford starts throwing that right jab. You notice Terence Crawford starts coming in on Kell Brook. And you notice Kell Brook is tentative. As I said in a pre-fight video, Kell Brook shouldn't even have been thinking about the later rounds. This is his window of opportunity. He had 3 rounds in which to hurt the champ. 3 rounds. We get to the 4th round. Folks, what is Terence Crawford doing right here on Kell Brook? Somebody explain it to me. It's not even like Crawford's worried about Kell Brook's left hook, which Kell Brook has. How is Crawford able to come in on Kell Brook, be here, load up and throw a right jab that hits Crawford, let's guess where? Right in the eye. And now he's had surgery on. How does that happen so early in the fight? Wasn't Kell Brook prepared to protect his eyes? Didn't Kell Brook know that Crawford, especially after the 3rd round, was focusing on landing his right jab out of the southpaw stance? Why wasn't Kell Brook either throwing punches to move Crawford away from this angle or moving himself? Where's the foot movement in the fight from Kell Brook? I know it's counterintuitive, but when you're fighting a champ on his soil and he's the overwhelming favorite in the fight, and you know politically impacted judges who understand the politics of boxing, who get that the nice hotel and stipend they're receiving, right, is in part from an establishment that views Terence Crawford as a great champion. You understand who's supposed to win this fight. Nobody has to tell you. Right? It's a plausible deniability regime. You get that. The opponent has to do something to beat the champ. Right? You can't be tentative then. You just can't. You have to go in the ring with your A game. If you're a fastball pitcher like Kell Brook is, you have to go in the ring throwing your best, throwing heat. You're not in there to throw change-ups and off-speed pitches if what you do is throw fastballs. Why didn't Kell Brook step on the gas? Why is his car in 3rd gear and not 4th gear in the first 2 rounds that he's winning? How is Crawford, who's getting hit with jabs, who can't figure out the timing the first 2 rounds, how is Crawford not pushed further? Right? So let's just say this. You know, years ago, Hearns lost to Hagler. But that's one of the best fights of Thomas Hearns' career. Hearns was not a middleweight. After that fight, you did think to yourself, wow, Hearns came for his title, didn't he? I'm sure as Marvin Hagler thinks about his career, about the guys who came after him in the ring. Thomas Hearns is on a very short list. That first round is arguably the best round in boxing history. Right? The Ali Frazier film. Understand, Joe Frazier is giving Ali not 1 inch. In fact, it's even better than that. Look at when the fighters come together in the middle of the ring. Joe Frazier has an open disdain for Ali. Right? The feeling is, hey, dude, F you. You want my title? Come get it. I'm here. I'm right here. Right? Kell Brook somehow, in a fight against boxing's best pound for pound, doesn't push it. Even when he wins the first 2 rounds. So, of course, on the official scorecards, Kell Brook was ahead on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. But he's not pushing it. If you're fighting a Crawford or a Mayweather, the odds of you winning a decision are slim. They're slim. Take the judges out of the equation. Where were Kell Brook's angry power shots? Why is Kell Brook tentative? And then, of course, there's the mental part of the game. Why didn't Kell Brook make the adjustment? How is Crawford so close to him to throw a power right-hand jab right on Kell Brook's eye? This is a missed opportunity, folks. If Kell Brook had Manny Pacquiao's level of aggression, this fight could have been different. Right? As it was, Terence Crawford looked surprised by Kell Brook's jab. Right? It's sudden. It's powerful. But then Kell Brook doesn't throw it enough. Look at Kell Brook's feet the first 2 rounds. You would think Kell Brook would come in with the attitude of Joe Frazier. Right, player? You're going to get hunted tonight. I'm coming forward. Maybe you knock me out, but I'm going to throw some shots. Right? That Thomas Hearns mindset. You know, Marvin, I'm here. I'm coming after you and your title. Right? We didn't get Hagler Hearns here, folks. We got a tentative Kell Brook who shows you the promise in the first 2 rounds isn't aggressive enough. Is not aggressive enough. Right? Then, of course, the champ makes an adjustment, right? Terence Crawford wants to keep his title, folks. He makes the adjustment. He goes southpaw. Kell Brook doesn't make the adjustment. You would have thought after the 3rd round, his corner would have said, Kell, you know, we're here to win his title. You know, he's southpaw now. You got to get him off that side of you. You got to prevent him from getting a rhythm, from landing a jab from a southpaw position. 4th round starts no urgency except with Crawford. Right? Understand, while Kell Brook is wasting time, Crawford is wasting none. Right? Crawford starts to land that right jab out of a southpaw stance. Crawford comes in deep in the pocket. He's prepared to close the show. I want people to see after Kell Brook gets blasted and the ref does him a solid. Understand, Kell Brook gets blasted. Tony Weeks is there. It's debatable whether the ropes held up Kell Brook. Right? I know many refs who would have looked at Kell Brook, would have thought, okay, he's hurt, but damn it, he's here challenging for a title. He won the first 2 rounds. I'm going to let this play out. Instead, Tony Weeks jumps in. Right? Kell Brook has multiple opportunities in this fight. Tony Weeks jumps in and gives him the count. If you've watched boxing in like the 70s and 80s, you'd have been outraged. That wouldn't have worked in Hearns Hagler. Well, after he gives Kell Brook the count, and understand, Kell Brook gets hurt. Does he grab Terence Crawford? What does Kell Brook do to survive after he's hit with that right jab right on his eye? He doesn't grab Crawford. Folks, the survival skills aren't there. So then he gets a count. And after the count, he's as helpless as he was before the count. You know, Crawford hasn't allowed a guy to go the distance with him for more than 4 years. So after Tony Weeks gives you a standing count when your knee never hits the canvas, right after you get the gift count, and Terence Crawford comes back, why don't you grab Crawford? Even if you're dizzy, why don't you try to move away from Crawford? How, after a count, is Crawford able to find you, guess where? Right along the same ropes. Right, Kell Brook, of course, is right along the same ropes after the count. How is Crawford able to walk across the ring and then dust you off? So the rush showed on Kell Brook. He wasn't ready to be daring here. Right? This isn't the Joe Frazier against Ali. This is not the Hitman against Hagler. This is not Lennox Lewis against Galata. This is not Manny Pacquiao against Marquez. Right? Those guys early in the fight made a decision. This is my edge. I'm going for it. Right? Ali, I'm not going to stand here and let you box me. This is not a boxing match. This is going to be a fight. Kell Brook doesn't make this a fight, even though he has the size and hand speed advantage. Another magnificent win for Terrence Bud Crawford. The fight was there. Right? We needed Hitman, one of the best welterweights ever in my opinion. We needed Thomas the Hitman Hearns' mindset, not Kell Brook's. Unfortunately, it was Kell Brook, not on his best day, tentative, in against a master chess player who, even though he makes a mistake coming out orthodox, then corrects it and goes in for the kill. You saw the killer instinct in this fight. It was from the undersized welterweight, Terrence Crawford, who got the KO over Kell Brook, who probably outweighed him by more than 10 pounds. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.